Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Silent Hill news podcast. Well, how about that when it comes to one single week making a world of difference in the Silent Hill franchise? Just about a week ago, I was talking about Silent Hill out of the blue only because there was that unfortunate tragic news down there in Panama involving that cult, and that cult that did these horrific actions to some of their people of their town, if you could call it a town, or some of the villagers there. And the way I was reading that information, it seemed to mimic so much of the Silent Hill world as far as the order, the cult members within there, the actions that they took against some of the townspeople. And so I referenced it several times in the video, and I'll include the link for it below if you haven't had a chance to see it. That way you can exactly see why I was linking it to Silent Hill. But anyways, I just talked about all of that only because of the news article. I had no idea that secretly, somewhere in the background, there was already a good set of stuff coming forward from Konami and then potentially other sources about Silent Hill games. Well, guess what? A week later, now out of the blue, there is a whole set of news, a whole set of updates, sources that are talking about this, and it all has to do with the fact that apparently Konami is back when it comes to Silent Hill, and that they're working on not just one, but apparently two games involving that franchise. And on top of that, they're taking feedback associated with Silent Hill. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all that fascinating info here. I wanted to specifically dedicate a video for this because I love Silent Hill so much. I know there's a lot of fans out there too, and I couldn't just wait to share this exciting news with you. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all that too. And I found another article that highlighted the 5 most important things that the new game should have, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and I'll mention those here too. But yes, you're looking at a screenshot in this case from various sources that all culminated into one place. It was from Eurogamer.net, and so I read several articles throughout multiple websites, and I thought this is a great one to share because it basically mishmashed them all together. You'll see the original story and then also the update associated with that original story. But yes, this is how it goes. So apparently there's a Twitterer, a guy by the name of Aesthetic Gamer, who has leaked several important Capcom related news in the past, and apparently those have come true. So the way he states things, whenever people hear that stuff, they tend to pay more attention to what he states. But yes, apparently Konami secretly in the background has been reaching out to several developers to try to get something involving ideas or some kind of stuff related to doing a reboot of sorts when it comes to this franchise. If they were doing this in the background, they did a really well job because nobody had any clue that this was happening. You know how there's always somebody that will leak this information somewhere. Very hard to keep a secret like this, of this magnitude, hidden, but yet they were able to do so. Not only that, but do so with outside parties as well, whoever these anonymous developers were, and nobody in those developers was able to leak those too. So 2 years or so of this happening, and now it's being revealed when it comes to that. But yes, it's all about pitching ideas to not just creating one game, but then also creating 2 games. Who knows if these will be developed at the same time, if they'll be released at the same time, or if they'll be one after the other, or even if both will be eventually developed afterward. But it gives you an idea of essentially of the possible ways that they're going. So the first one has to do with a soft reboot. This will be interesting because if they truly go with this soft reboot, that means that yet again, they'll be making a new version of Silent Hill. So of course there's the original Silent Hill, the very first game, and then that one, some of the stuff was eventually branched out into several other games, but then it was rebooted in some ways when it came to that Shattered Memories game. It was almost like a soft reboot there, almost like a whole new origin of sorts. So if this one actually involves yet another soft reboot, I'm wondering if it's going to develop from the original games like Silent Hill 1 or the Shattered Memories, or if it could potentially be a soft reboot of some of the other games that were branched, like for example Silent Hill 4 when it comes to The Room and Harry Townshend, or when it comes to Silent Hill 3 or maybe even Silent Hill 2, the continuation of some of the characters there. Who knows, because again this is all very, very preliminary stuff. But yes, that's at least one of the ideas when it comes to the soft reboot, getting these pitched ideas for it. The other one goes in a completely different direction as far as this other game. and that's this. Apparently, it's an episodic Telltale-like game where it's more along the lines of you pick and choose the adventure that you are going across over several levels. So I've seen those games actually on YouTube, and I've tested them once before on one of my little machines here, and they're all right. I mean, I guess it's just not for me when it comes to clicking and choosing which path certain directions will go, but they're very popular with other people. I saw that there was a very popular set of Batman games that are out there when it comes to this type of franchise. So imagine that. Imagine if you're able to play a game like this when it comes to Silent Hill, and you're able to go various paths, all based on the decisions you make. And then if you want to restart it and do another path, then you'll be able to go the other direction afterward. In a way, it's almost like it's happened already in Silent Hill, just lightly. Like, for example, there's all those infamous endings that were in all those other games where, based on some of the actions you took throughout the game, then at the very end, it'll help decide the type of ending you got. Sometimes throughout the earlier parts of the game, there are other actions that you'll go forth based on the decisions you're making, but those were even lighter when it came to the experiences. No, the big impacts were definitely towards the end. Now, though, if they truly follow this episodic Telltale feature, then yes, absolutely, it will go with various different paths, all based, again, on the decision. And imagine this. Imagine it's going to be not just part 1, but part 2, part 3, part 4, like the Jurassic Park ones. That way you'll be able to see a continuation, almost like a cliffhanger, based on each episode, and then that way you'll be able to see where that path takes you afterward. Very unique. It's very brave when it comes to that style. It'll be interesting to see how that could work in the world of Silent Hill. But yes, those are the two type of games that they're apparently seeking. So again, whether there's going to be both titles, whether there's going to be just one, whether they're going to continue one after the other, who knows? But those are at least some of the information. And again, some of the other sources are stating that yes, there is at least a Silent Hill project that's being developed. On top of that, there's apparently the news that Kojima is working on something secret, a new type of horror game. There's Masahiro Ito, who is another member, in this case, of the earlier Silent Hill games, stating that he's working on something that he's hopefully not going to be, in his words, canceled. And then there's various other sources again stating that there's more work behind the scenes as far as to this stuff. And then the update that really hit me was this. You're looking at it now. It has to do with the news that one day later, a Konami spokesperson mentioned that we cannot share anything at this point, but we are listening to customer feedback and considering ways to provide the next title. So if that doesn't tell you that they're truly working on something in Silent Hill, then I don't know what will. They are absolutely working on a development for it, and apparently they're going to take customer feedback for that as well. When I hear the word customer feedback, I think of all those surveys that people get. Like if you shop at a grocery store, you may get that text or you may get that email later on telling you how the experience was, or even if you order pizza, you may get those as well. I'm curious to know then how they're going to do that here. Are they going to be able to create some kind of form where they take feedback, or are they going to create some kind of focus group and then select certain players and then get that stuff too? My worry, though, is if they focus on that feedback from fans, there may be the chance that it'll just be fan service. Like, for example, PT. PT was totally the opposite of what you would expect of fan service, and that's why it worked so well. Like, if you were to tell anybody that's a huge fan of Silent Hill what they want more of, they'll tell you, we want more monsters, we want more scares when it comes to those monsters. Yet PT went completely the opposite way. All it was, if you consider Lisa, was one monster throughout the entire game, and that was the scariest experience out of any Silent Hill I have ever seen. One single monster, and yet you had no idea when she would pop up. You had no idea if she was behind you, if she was going to come out throughout various corners. One single monster did that trick, as opposed to, let's say, fans considering and saying we want monsters around every corner. Then that'll definitely be what I'm fearful of when it comes to taking this kind of feedback. Also, when it comes to that feedback, I'm hoping that they're able to take stuff, some of the best stuff from the past games, and then hopefully like continue those I guess you could call it like stories from the past. Like there's characters in Silent Hill 2 that I would just love to see the continuation of. It's kind of like a love-hate thing because I want to see their continuation. I want to see the progression of those characters that are considered cult classics and that are no longer around. But at the same time, their popularity stems from the fact that we only saw them once. And so if we get to see them again, then their magic, the one that contained their popularity, may just essentially just fall off because we get to see their next part and then realize, oh, is this it? We're kind of bummed out afterward, thinking that it's going to be so great. And if it turns out that it doesn't become the experience that we want, then that'll just ruin the previous stuff too. Because yeah, there's some very memorable characters, both in Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, somewhat in Silent Hill 4, and then it goes from there that I wish we could see more of. But at the same time, if the feedback is pointing to their continuation, then it may ruin things afterward. But I also wanted to include one other article, and it has to do with this. It's a nice opinion article that it talks about the 5 things that Konami should have within the new Silent Hill games. And so I'll highlight some of that stuff here. Number 1, their stating is, remember, it's a horror game. And that's true. Please, please, please keep it within the horror realm, but keep it in that special horror realm where it is fearful. Like it is the tiniest things that make things so scary, like hearing these bumping noises in the background, or hearing this kind of staticky radio that's playing somewhere else, or hearing disheveling monsters somewhere else around you. Instead of having like the jump scares that other games have, Silent Hill was more popular about the atmosphere and about the surrounding environments making things so horrible. Like I remember there was one specific part in Silent Hill 2 where there's like this pig-like squeal that just sounds so horrific, so horrible whenever you go across a certain part of an apartment complex. I think it was somewhere in the sub-basement area, and it's just disgusting, like to hear it, and it made me so fearful. Or you hear the breeding hallways or the breeding rooms, or you hear whispers somewhere in the background. I'm hoping that they're keeping that type of horror level, and I agree with that being one of the top 5 choices. The next one has to do with a remarkable aspect, and that's this: making it a first-person perspective. Yes, I agree with this. I really hope that they continue what PT did, and that is to make these new games as first-person perspective. When you think about it, all the past Silent Hill games were all third person, and they work to their extent, but PT took things to a whole other level because you were limited to what you saw with the character's eyes only. You had to turn around in order to know that nothing was behind you, but you knew that if you did that, then Lisa would pop out at any point. That's what made it so horrific. You couldn't just turn around or use that special trick that third person perspective does, where you can kind of see further than you normally would in order to make things better. No, in this case, a first person perspective, especially if they go into the realm of virtual reality or Oculus or other type of formats like that, then that would be even much better. So imagine that when it comes to the next Silent Hill game. And then the next thing they're mentioning is about creating the perfect surround sound, which I absolutely agree with. I was just mentioning that about the environments and about the sounds that you hear. There was all that creepy stuff when it came to the PT teaser, and how you were able to hear things in the far background, like that radio from hell that just kept giving those messages, and wherever you were, it almost seemed to be playing somewhere. Or the baby that was crying within the fridge, and no matter how far you got away from the hallway, you still heard it, and the way it was moving about, and those bumping sounds that it made as the blood dripped. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, if you could put that kind of sound effect in there, it truly made things would make things to another level. That was already happening clearly within some of the past games, like in Silent Hill 2 and then to some extent Silent Hill 3. But imagine something like this using the latest technology in this format. That would definitely make things so much better. And then as far as getting the original team back, that's another thing that they were focusing on this top 5. I don't know if that'll work because so many people talk about the original Team Silent Hill, but considering that it's been several years, a good number of years, almost 20 plus when it comes to that, maybe some of the core characters like Masahiro Ito, like I was mentioning earlier, or the composer Akira Yamaoka, if they could get some of those guys back, that's potential as far as like a nostalgia type stuff. But at the same time, if they do that, then I don't know if they're going to be able to branch out into fresh things. It's scary. Like, you want new perspectives, you want something original, you want it to go and to branch out into new areas. But at the same time, there's risk involved, right? Because what if it sucks? What if it doesn't work? And then that's when you want the old stuff back. As we saw, that's what happened with the Star Wars sequels, where a lot of the stuff that was critiqued about them was the lack of originality and how it mimics so much of the earlier franchise. Well, imagine if that happens here again when it comes to Silent Hill. So as far as getting some of the original Silent Hill team back, I'm not so sure about that unless it's some of the core members, maybe as consultants. But at the same time, I want originality. I want it to branch out into new things. Again, like PT was, and how breathtaking it was in the world of Silent Hill. And then number 5 is return to the roots narratively. This is the other thing that I'm kind of a little bit scared about, because I want it to also no longer focus on stuff that's almost been beaten to death, for lack of a better term, like the world of the Order or the world of Alessa, the Gillespies, or anything else involving some of the other key characters. Maybe as far as new original monsters, yeah, absolutely. Maybe as far as callback to some of the other characters too. I was mentioning earlier, you could bring some of those characters back and then continue them, but you have the risk of it failing and then making the original impact of those characters seem bad. So as far as returning to his roots, it's possible, as long as they're almost like a nod to it, and as long as it continues to state some of the darkness associated with Silent Hill. So I'm possibly for this. I want to see more information on it later on. But what do you guys think about that? The top 5 reasons, top 5 things that Konami should do in the Silent Hill world. I'm going to include the link for that below too, and then that way you get to see and put your own thoughts as well. But exciting news, isn't it, folks, when it comes to Silent Hill? 2 new potential games. We have one being a fresh reboot of sorts, and then we have another one featuring an episodic Telltale side, and then we have Konami officially stating that they're getting feedback or want feedback when it comes to this. Multiple sources, again, all stating from behind the scenes that the stuff is being worked on. Also, I was going to mention too that Konami is looking towards because the what is it called, the copyrights or the trademarks had lapsed, and so they're looking to renew those as well. So that's another indication. And then you have some of the core members from the previous games also stating secretly that they're working on some things that could be tied to this, very loosely, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. All that stuff is easily exciting stuff in the world of Silent Hill, all happening in one single week. So great stuff. If I hear more news after later on that's considered big, then I'll go ahead and I'll share that here. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care. Let me know what your comments are too about this. Take care, everyone. Bye.